Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another episode of America in Black and White, the America in Black and White podcast that explores the intersection of race, business, and society. I'm your host, Charles King, and today we have a very special guest joining us, Mr. Ed Bailey. Ed is a seasoned professional in business development, strategy, analytics, and human capital. Let me tell you a little bit about Ed. Um, It has spent the past 25 years guiding businesses to prosperity with expertise in business development, strategy, analytics, and human capital. It currently leads Polymath Performance, where he helps people and organizations understand, predict, and enhance performance through coaching and systems. It has experience and expertise as a corporate leader. For example, he's worked with McKinsey, Google, LinkedIn, and Cisco. He's an entrepreneur, a sports agent, and in public service as a school board member in California and a trustee for his alma mater, Michigan State University. It received his master's in business administration and a master of arts in education from Stanford University and a Bachelor of Science degree with a dual concentration in mathematics and finance from Michigan State University. A native of Chicago, Illinois, Ed is based in Northern California, where he lives with his wife and daughter. Ladies and gentlemen, I give you Mr. Ed Bailey.
Hello, hello, Charles. How you doing today?
Hey, I'm doing just excellent, sir. How are you today?
I'm great. Is our connection better this time?
Yes, sir.
Awesome, awesome.
Yes, sir. Well, I appreciate you for taking the time to come back.
Happy to
Is
be
there
here.
anything else you'd like to add to the introduction in your bio?
No, I think that's good for now. I got a lot of stories, and I'm sure you'll bring them out with your questions and during our conversation.
Yes, sir. I definitely appreciate that. So then let's dive right in. Um, can you tell our listeners a little bit about your background and how you got started in the field of business development, strategy, analytics, and human capital?
For sure. So I think for my entire life, I've been focusing on figuring out the answers to the test. And so when I was young, that involved reading, studying, and when I could find qualified mentors, really being able to connect with those mentors and ask very detailed and appropriate questions, but also focusing on how I could be of service to them. So I can not only learn from their intellect, but also learn from their experience as well. And so throughout my journeys, not only from the academic perspective, but from the corporate perspective and entrepreneurship perspective, my ultimate goal is to be has been to learn as much as possible so I can share as much as possible. Because I have the core belief that all people can be successful. You just have to define success appropriately for you. And then you have to get the help that you need. And sometimes that help naturally comes from our family, our friends, and the network from our origin where we grew up. But a lot of times, like in my case, you have to build that network because the network for what you personally need isn't naturally available to you. And so, I built my career and I built my life around learning as much as possible and sharing as much as possible. And I think that combination puts me in a great position to not only experience life in an amazing way, but help others change the world, which is arguably more important to me.
Oh, wow. Now that's profound. Thank you for that answer. And I'm sure that everybody's going to really be looking forward to this knowledge that you're going to be dropping tonight. Um,
Well,
how do
listen,
you
I don't know everything, but I know a fair bit. And tomorrow I'll know more than today, and next year I'll know more than this year. So stay with it, people. Stay with it.
thank you for that. How do you define business development in today's rapidly evolving landscape? And what strategies do you believe are essential for sustainable growth?
Well, business development ultimately it comes down to your ability to generate new customers and to get more out of existing customers for your product, your service, your business. And with that, a lot of times the focus needs to be, well, how do I get someone from cold, not knowing me not knowing my brand, not even necessarily knowing that they have a problem that needs solving, to someone who feels comfortable and trusts that you, as an entity, as a person, as an organization, can solve their problem. And you need a system to be able to do that. Now, I would separate out the system based on what price the product or service that you have that is being offered. So if someone can buy something easily with a credit card and the line I normally mark is under $100, then your focus needs to be marketing. Your focus needs to be to make sure that you are seen, that people are aware, that the right people know why they should consider your product or service versus other services, and that they feel comfortable and that they feel safe purchasing from you versus the other alternatives because you're going to solve the pain that they want. If your product is complicated and it requires a lot of decisions and a lot of customization and a lot of back and forth, then you need to be excellent at sales, because getting the awareness isn't going to be enough. You're going to have to walk someone through a process. And in many times, they're already going to have a current way that they solve their problem. And so you're going to have to convince them to divorce the way that they're currently using and use your method, your system, your process instead. And that's not only going to require a conversation, but it's going to require nurturing. You know, the science of marketing says you need to touch someone 5 to 12 times through different mediums and different channels before to get them to say yes to a purchase, yes to a decision. And you're not going to do that without a solid business development system in place. And one of my sayings that I say a lot is no new customers, no business. Because if you don't have a consistent way to generate new customers, your current customers leaving for likely good, solid, natural reasons put your business at risk every single time. And that's just not a place that you want to be.
So, just in a nutshell, so does that mean that price is where you start from the beginning?
No, I fully believe that you can charge any price you want, but the initial investment that you're asking someone to make determines whether a marketing brand based approach would be more effective, and that's under $100 for that first purchase, versus whether a sales consultative approach would be more effective, and that's when the price point I would say on average is above $100, and or what they're getting is complicated and needs to be tailored or bespoke.
Okay. Can you share insights on how businesses can leverage analytics to make informed decisions and drive strategic initiatives effectively?
Well, first, what I'll say is that analytics sounds like a very tough, a very intimidating term, and it shouldn't be. I think ultimately there are probably 4 to 5 numbers for any given business that will determine whether your business is successful or not. And I think, frankly, a lot of business owners tend to overcomplicate things. And if you get tons of spreadsheets, dashboards, tools with every number under the sun, but you don't know how to prioritize, how to look at each number, and how to figure out what that means for the actions you and your teams and your employees and your customers need to take, then you're not operating the system. And I say system a lot, but I think it's really, really important. If you want predictable results, you need predictable methods in place. And the first thing you should think about when you think about analytics is you need to understand in a pretty precise way what are the measurements that matter to my business. And normally it's a combination of how often am I seen, at what percentage do I take someone who sees me and turn them into someone who's interested in working with me? How often do I take someone who's interested in working with me and turn them into a customer? How much does it cost in terms of effort, time, and money to turn a person into a customer? And then what's my expected return? Not only in terms of what's the first average order value size, but also what's the customer lifetime value. And it's been proven across different business models in different industries. If your customer lifetime value over a 12 to 24 month period is sufficiently bigger than your customer acquisition cost, you have an excellent opportunity to build a scalable business. But particularly when you're early in business, that should be your focus. You need to know how much does it cost to get a customer, and how much can I get out of them on the first try, and how can I expand that lifetime value as much as possible. If you understand the cornerstones of how to do that and how to structure your cost structure so that acquiring and serving customers is prioritized in the cost structure, you can always work on the operational end to tidy up and use technology, use AI, utilize people in order to make sure the rest of your cost structure is in line so that you get the shareholder value. And particularly for many small business owners, you get the cash flow that you want as the reward for all of your hard work. But if you don't understand upfront how much it costs to get a customer and how much you're getting out of each customer, you're skiing down a steep slope in the dark, blind. And I
Oh,
and I don't do that. I'm not a skier, but I couldn't imagine anything more frightening than that.
most most definitely.
Did I shake you up a little bit there?
Woo. Well, I tell you that that's a visual, but that makes a lot of sense because I would think that if you're going into it blindly, not knowing, then you're only going to do yourself some harm. So I think it's always good to try to find at least some rationale or some rhyme or reason as to what you're going to do and find out if you're at least starting out on the right track.
That's right. And direction is going to change. That's inevitable. Change is a part of life. But you at least need to be going at a speed where you can see. The visual I like to give people is if you're running really, really fast, it's cloudy. You can't see because you're going fast. And so if you're going to go fast, it's essential that you're going in the right direction. And
Mm.
sometimes, in order to identify that right direction, you have to stop and be still. People talk about the eye of the hurricane. It's still in there. Everything around you is going fast, 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 fast. But in the eye, it's still. And when it's still, that's when you need to look around. You need to decide your direction. You need to decide that based on the credible information that you have that should come from analytics and from your advisors and from your team. And then you pick a direction. And then you put your foot on the accelerator and you go until you see danger.
Mm. Wow. That's a really good visual. It really is, and because I think what I was starting to think about, as you said that, is I think about, initially I will tell you, I was talking with someone on one of my other shows that then they were using the kitchen analogy, and I'm like, initially when I started out, the kitchen was a mess. It was a mess. And so I had to go back and I had to review and I had to start over again before I actually got it right. That's because I just went from here instead of how the functionality of business worked. And so I was in a bad position in the beginning.
Yeah,
Um
and to like take that kitchen analogy further, the kitchen that might be optimal for me and my family is going to be different than the kitchen that's optimal for you and optimal for every one of our viewers here. And so
mhm,
that's the important part. There's a lot of great books, a lot of great videos, a lot of great podcasts about business, but the key is you need to take the insight, you need to take the science, and then you need to know what you want so that you can get the best scientific thing that's for you. But the key
mhm,
thing is you can't take someone else's answer that's very different from you, apply it to you, and expect it to work. That's silly. That's
mhm,
magical thinking. Not going to happen.
mhm. Wow. So, from your perspective, what role does human capital play in shaping an organization's success? And how can companies invest in their workforce to foster growth?
Well, that's a really good question. I think personally, human capital is the ultimate sustainable edge for an organization. And so, as you learn the science and the math of your industry and your space, at some point, all of the good companies, all of the good players are going to have similar technology, similar methodology, similar cost structure, similar unit economics. So, what's the differentiator? The differentiator is if company A has people working at 120% because those people believe in the mission and vision of the company, because their roles are aligned with not only their skill sets, but their passion, and they're willing to invest extra, they give you 120%. Now, take company B, where the vision is unclear, there's infighting within the employee groups, people are in the wrong roles, and people aren't passionate about their work. Those people are giving 50%. That's
Mm,
more than a 2x difference. So the game is won and lost on a long term perspective by making sure the people involved in your company are in the right place, using the skill sets that they're passionate about and that they're good at, and that they're being developed and inspired to choose, not only for reasons that are good for you as an organization, but reasons that are good for themselves to be able to invest. That's the key. And
So go ahead.
no, go ahead, Charles.
No, I was just going to ask you. So then, in this situation, would there have a lot that have a lot to do with what you hired this person for originally to know exactly if you got them in the right position, or is it kind of like when people try to do the catch-all where they fix it to where somebody can do like multiple things?
Well, to be honest, I wish people were thoughtful on either one of those levels, but I'll tell you what I've experienced in a lot of the businesses, both large and small. Here's what happens. You as a manager, you as an owner get to a point where you have 10 to 15 hours more work than you want. So the light bulb goes on like, yes, I need to go hire someone. And so you go hire someone for that 10 or 15 hours of work. But most full-time work is at least 40 hours, if not 50. No one's going to do their 15 hours of work and then not fill that 30 to 35 hours with something. And the problem is once they decide what to fill it with, you can't get it back. And because they're probably giving you what you want with that first 10 to 15, you're also not paying attention to what they're filling the rest of the time with. And so what I follow myself, but also what I tell my clients is do not hire a person until you have 40 to 50 hours of clear work that aligns with your key performance indicators for them to do. And that you can tell them exactly how to spend that 40 hours and exactly what the value is to them as an employee and to the company. Because you don't want people working at 33% utilization. And that's what happens when you hire someone just because your workload or that particular team workload feels inconvenient. It feels a little bit heavy. It's not just about feeling a little bit heavy. It's about each person contributing to the top and the bottom line in a designed specific way. Now, I'll
Mhm.
tell you the other mistake many organizations make, which is, say someone for whatever reason leaves the team. They go and immediately try to find as close to a person as possible to fill that person's slot. And I think that's a big mistake because you have a team there already. It's possible that if you have a team of 10, there might be 3 people on that team that may be ready, willing, and able to absorb 50, 60, 70% of that work and do it even better. So I really encourage people, if you have an employee or a team member that leaves, give the organism that's there time to remorph and then see what the hole is and hire for the hole, because the hole left by the person who exited may not be the right hole to fill. The right hole to fill that brings that team to the best possible level may be different, and you'll never find out if you go too fast. The best you can do is replicate what you currently have, and in business, if you don't get better, you get gone.
Mm. Wow. What are some key metrics or KPIs that businesses should prioritize when assessing their performance and identifying areas for improvement?
Yeah, so we talked a little bit about you have to understand your customer lifetime value. You have to understand your customer acquisition costs. Those are two right away that I'm surprised how many business owners don't have that part down to a science. After that point, what I would also look at is measurements of employee productivity. And the reason for this is not because this is school and you're trying to give everyone a grade. What's important is every system has dependencies. And for some parts of the system, you need an elite 90th, 99th percentile person to be successful, because the difference between that level of performance and just very good costs the business a lot of money, whether it's lost revenue or lost profit or lost cash flow. Some pieces you need to be very good, but they don't need to be all world. Some some areas of the business are so well defined that if you have an average person of that skill set and they just come in and do their job day in and day out, you get the result that you want. And some areas are so well defined that you can bring a person in, train them up from scratch, and you just need the right behaviors. So a lot of times when people hire, they're looking for techniques, experience, scientific expertise. And all those things are well and good. But I'll tell you, for the things that are important to your business, you need a metric to understand how well you can train other people who aren't so experienced and get them up to speed. Because if you can do that, you have so much of an advantage. And then you can focus on hiring people who are cultural fits, who are behavioral fits, who will get along with their team members, who will bring a net positivity and energy to your organization. It
Wow.
For
So have you
2024
ever
and beyond, like that's the big advantage. If you know your company well enough so that you can focus on hiring for behaviors, which you have to draft for, versus technical skills, which if you're a company and this is what you need to be successful, you need to get good at training people on those technical skills. So you can focus on the thing that's hard to buy and get that at the right price.
have you ever had a client that's actually had an issue with dealing with this situation?
I think every client I've ever had has had issues dealing with the situation.
Mm.
There's a reason that people leave companies at the rates that they do. And it's not always the company's choosing. I have a saying that people join companies and they leave managers. Now, why do they leave managers? Because the experience they were promised is not the experience that was delivered. And part of the reason why that expectation fails is because that expectation wasn't properly set. They didn't have the information, they didn't have the understanding, they didn't have the thoughtfulness to not only understand the technical and the business requirements of the role, but the behavioral and personality requirements of the role as well. And I would say, a lot of times the conversations I end up having with my clients goes along a thread of, okay, is this something you as a company know how to do and can teach someone else? Because if you know how to do it, there's one and only one right answer. You should be able to teach someone else how to do it. And if you can do that, really what you should be focused on is finding the people you can train to run that play, run that system. And in that case, they're all going to be similar people. Now, if you have a situation where you have to solve a new problem, something novel that hasn't been faced before, for example, a pandemic, that's when you need diversity of perspective, diversity of thought. And you need a lot of different kinds of people with a lot of different backgrounds and experiences. But not only that, you need to create an environment where everyone believes and feels a right and is respected enough to be able to speak up, no matter what their title, no matter what their space is. It blew my mind when I was a consultant how many times the answer to the CEO's problem was in their organization, but the person who had it didn't have access to the C suite, didn't have access to the owner. So the owner, the leader, wasn't getting the information. And so the problem wasn't getting solved. But because I could talk to that person and then go talk to the CEO or the owner, the problem gets fixed. I'm like, this is ridiculous. You two people work together. Just have the conversation. But so many companies create structures and environments where the people don't get an opportunity to interact and talk. And it's because they're prioritizing the wrong stuff.
Oh, wow. In your experience, how can businesses effectively align their strategic goals with their human capital management strategies to maximize productivity and employee satisfaction?
Yeah, so I think that's really a continuation of what we've been talking about, right? So I'll give you an example. When once an organization understands, okay, I have a high price item, I need to implement a sales oriented process to acquire new customers. And so at some point, you need to hire salespeople. Now, what salespeople look like on TV and in the movies, and what actually makes a good salesperson are very, very different. Great salespeople, and I've had the chance to do the analytics on this in multiple places. They tend to be more introverted than extroverted. They
Mm.
tend to be researchers. They tend to be students of people. And do you know why? Because in order to get someone to make a change, you have to identify a pain. You have to aggravate that pain, or hopefully they come to you already aggravated and thirsty for a solution. And then you just have to line up the solution that they need with what your product or service offers. But that requires a person who's willing to sit back and listen and observe. And then when called upon, be sharp and quick with the answer. And people who are more loquacious, more extroverted, they're so busy trying to manage the energy of the room sometimes that they miss the signals that are the key to solving the problem. And so that's just a perfect example of you need to study the situation so that you bring in the right type of person and not just go by the stereotypes we see on movies, on TV, on social media. That's not where the answers are. So you really have to strategically, number one, understand what matters for your business. Number two, understand how to make that happen on a consistent basis. And that's really what strategy is. Once you have that, then understand what are the technical capabilities that need to be in place and what are the personality and behavioral capabilities. And then as a company, you need to think about how can I develop systems and training and curriculum so I can get people up to speed on the technical stuff as soon as possible, because that's my bread and butter. And then for the behavioral personality stuff, how can I identify the behaviors needed for a job? And then how can I hire people with those behaviors as consistently as possible? And the key is one of the things that people talked about with Google a lot, but I actually loved is that no hiring manager at Google got to by themselves decide who to hire. It had to go through a process because at some point, the person that manager picks might need to work for a different manager or in a different role or in a different organization. So they not only need to be a personal fit for their manager, they need to be a company fit. And you have to do a lot more work to make sure you understand what it actually means to be a company fit. But I promise you, once you do that work, you will discover diamonds all over the place that you never thought were there. And you'll discover opportunities to work with people who can really change your organization, but they just come in a different package that you or my or anyone's biased mind might go seek out if we were just left to our own devices.
Mm, wow. So so to sum that up as a summation,
Yep.
would that be to the fact of just communication from top to bottom would need to happen in order to make everything flow, or was there something else that was missing in all of that mixture?
So communication was a big piece of it, and prioritization is the second piece.
Okay,
Everything can't be perfect.
right.
It's
Oh,
there is no matter how you look at it, religiously, scientifically, artistically, personally, nothing's perfect. If you invest your time, your energy, your effort in one thing, there's a chance that something else is going to suffer. The opportunity is knowing what you need and knowing what's important now. I call that the win. What's important now? Knowing what's important now so that you can invest the right resources in what's important now and make sure that you take care of the most important thing and make it as good as it can be. And over time, if you go down the list of important things and take each one of them and make it as good as it can be, you'll look down the road 10 years from now and you've knocked off the top 25 important things. And if
mm,
you can get there as a company, as an organization, you're going to have a big advantage from the person firefighting or the person going randomly or the person going based on their feelings and their enjoyment.
mm,
Process, system, measurement. That's what wins in 2024. And by the way, people talk about artificial intelligence, generative AI, chat GPT. The people who are going to use those technologies successfully are the people who already understand their systems so that they can train generative AI on the knowledge they already have so the intelligence can generate what they specifically need and not generic gobbledygook.
oh wow. And just speaking of that, so as technology continues to disrupt traditional business models, how can companies adapt their strategies to remain competitive while also fostering innovation?
You know what? I think the word disrupt actually puts you in the wrong mindset because when something's disrupted, your natural instinct is to defend.
Mhm.
Technology is here to help. Technology, the definition is to make something faster, easier, or better. Technology is not the enemy. Technology might come about that shows you that what you've currently been doing may have some weaknesses, that there may be a better way, but it's not the enemy. And particularly if you as a company are forward looking and you're always thinking through, okay, what if it existed tomorrow, would help me do things faster, easier, better. If your mindset is in abundance in that way, you're going to notice a new technology and you're going to think, okay, this can help me. This can help someone on my team work 10 less hours. This can shift someone's workload 20 hours from something they hate to do to something they love to do. Technology is your friend. And if you find yourself looking at a technology or capability and getting defensive, the problem is not the technology. The problem is you don't feel safe. And then you need to go do the homework to figure out, why don't I feel safe? And invest in that. And then go find a technology that helps you feel more safe. And so that's it. Technology is not a person. Technology can't kick your butt. Technology can't stop your life. They're tools.
You know,
Tools are
so
used to make things.
just to add a little extra to that, can you tell me this? What is your opinion on this? Is that now you got so many people that are trying to say, that they're afraid that the AI is going to take over the world, and it's supposed to be all of these other things, and it's just going to cause so many problems, and so now you got people saying they don't want it. Why do you think they're feeling that way?
Well, I've been there in certain situations. The fear is I don't have another option. I have one way to win. I've been running that train. I've been on that train going as fast as I can. I'm somewhat close to the finish line. And now all of a sudden there's a train coming at speed across the track. And if I don't get by in time, I'm going to get wrecked. That's a very, very natural fear. And
Mhm,
it's somewhat appropriate to have that fear.
mhm.
But fear is false expectations appearing real. Fear is
Okay.
different than danger. If there's danger, you protect yourself. But technology should not make you fearful. It should illuminate the fact that, hey, maybe the timeline isn't what I once thought it was. But being afraid doesn't change that fact. The timeline is the timeline. And so when you have new information, sometimes that new information causes you to have to change, to have to make an adjustment. And change is uncomfortable, and change is painful, and change sucks. And if you've been comfortable for a long time, you don't want to do it. I get it. But if the choice is make the change, be okay, don't make the change, don't be okay, guess what you do? You make the change. And I guarantee you, every person listening, whenever they've wanted something in life that really meant something to them, when it required change, they did it. And they did it without anyone asking them to.
Mm,
So you just have to embrace the perspective of, I can, I'm capable, I'm gonna be okay. I was a baby. I didn't know how to do any of this stuff. I just had a bunch of brain cells. I learned. You can continue to learn. You can learn from the day you're born to the day you die if you decide to. You can get better. You can grow from the day you're born until the day you die if you decide to. You just have to decide to. I have a new acronym I've been using with my clients called DINNER. Do it now, never ever regret. When you have an idea or when you see something and the tickle in your brain is like, okay, make an adjustment, don't overthink it. Just make the adjustment.
mm.
Time is our friend if we use it appropriately.
Can you discuss the importance of diversity and inclusion in the workplace and how it contributes to organizational success and innovation?
Yeah. So we talked about this a little bit, but let's delve deeper. There are many situations in life where it's new, it's novel, there's no clear answer. It needs to be figured out. When that situation happens, you don't want 10 people who are exactly the same because those 10 people are going to come up with one answer. And that's the only answer you're going to have to choose from. You want 10 different people who care, but who have different perspectives in life and different skill sets and different experiences because those people are going to come up with five, six different options. And I guarantee you, if you have five or six options, you have a better chance of finding the one than if you just have one. And so the reason diversity is so important to innovation is because innovation requires something new to be created to solve a new problem or an emerging like variation on an old problem. And when you have new stuff that hasn't been done before, you need to think a little bit differently. And you don't know who's going to have the answer. If it was that predictable, it wouldn't be a new problem. Now, on the flip side, if it's a tried and true problem that's happened many times before, and there's only one answer, don't mess around. Do the thing that works, and pick the kind of person who knows how to do the thing that works. That isn't the opportunity to be creative and to color outside the lines.
Mm,
But so many like businesses get paid when they solve pain in new ways that help their customers get what they want. The new part is the very reason why you need a diverse group of people as part of your organization so that you can be in the best position so that no matter what the new thing is, you have the team to go figure it out. Things aren't going to stay the same. I know it'd be more comfortable that way. It's magical thinking. Things are going to change. The
mhm,
teams and the organizations that change with that make those changes, they keep going. The ones who don't, they die.
mm.
And
Yeah,
it doesn't
so
matter if you were in first place or 10th place.
mhm. So with the diversity and inclusion, I mean, is this another way for businesses to really hone in on what's there in order to make themselves better instead of separating?
Yeah, I think the goal we talked about how important human capital is to a sustainable advantage for a business. If
Mm,
you just continually hire the same person over and over again to solve a set of changing and emerging problems, that's not a winning formula. And so you have to have the capability to be able to go into the marketplace and get what you need when you need it. And your reputation precedes you. If you're an organization, if you're a business that is not welcoming to certain people, and that certain person has the answer to your problem, then you don't get the answer and then you lose. And
mm,
if your business matters to you, for whatever the reasons are, why would you want to be in that position?
mm,
Like, the goal is to win. And you can win while being kind, while being equitable, while treating people appropriately. But the goal is to be effective. The goal is to be successful. And whatever person has the answer, has the ability, that's the person you want on your team. Why the heck would you put up barriers for the person you need to be able to help you? That's crazy. You don't want to do that. That's why you need to make sure that your organization is set up so that it's welcoming and embracing, and that everyone who has ideas, has thoughts, has the respect, and has the space to be able to speak on it. See something, say something.
mm. That's very, very that too. That's very thought provoking because um I'm just thinking about, what's happening in certain regions of the country, and in certain cities and states and so forth, that, you know, the diversity part is like, um, some people or some places are trying to get rid of that. And I'm just trying to understand how does that make everyone win, you know?
It doesn't. People do that when they feel safe. Like the
Mhm,
people who are trying to control their environment, that's a defensive move. What you're basically saying is, I want to stay where I'm at. I want to be where I'm comfortable. I want to control everything. And the easiest way for me not to have challenges is for everything to be exactly how I want them and for everyone to be exactly how I want them to be. That's a
mm,
defensive posture. Defense does not work in business. The world is evolving. We've been evolving for a long time. We're going to continue to evolve. If you stop evolving, it's the sports equivalent of waiting for the clock to run out. And if the other team keeps playing hard, the clock's going to run out, but you're going to be on the wrong side of the scoreboard. Why would you want that? And
that is
especially
true.
if you're already big and powerful, why not get good at offense so you can stay big and powerful?
Mhm,
Like the whole, okay, I'm going to hold the ball and run the clock out. Why? Your biggest advantage is that you're big.
right.
Be big. You can afford to take a piece of your resources and try something new, and in that way, the best defense is actually a good offense. It's the ability to create new. The best
Mhm,
defense of your company is the ability to create the next thing. So you don't have to depend just on the current thing.
Mm. So, what are some common challenges that businesses face when it comes to implementing data driven strategies? And how can they overcome these obstacles?
I think the biggest challenge is people don't understand data, they don't understand math. And then I think the second chance is people believe that math will give them one true right answer that's correct all the time. And as a math person, as a person well trained in the science of it, that's not how it works. When I build models for clients, I always tell them this model represents 65, 75, 85% of the real world. There's some part that can't be covered with math, can't be covered with the model. That's the fun part of life.
Mm.
Like if everything was predictable, you just have to do it once and then march down and like not pay attention anymore. What fun is that? Unless you're operating scared, and there's no need to be scared. Like it's okay. So the first thing is, you know, math doesn't fix everything. And I'll tell you something else. If you're interacting with the person and they need math and they need facts, what they're also saying is they don't trust you. Because think about it. When you trust someone, you don't need facts to allow them to be themselves and do what they do. You believe in them. So you give them a mission, you give them the assignment, you have faith and belief that they understand the assignment, and when they bring you back the answer, you're like, "Okay, I believe you. Let's keep going." When you start asking for math and you start asking for prove it, you're already in the losers bracket. You're already uncomfortable.
Mm.
The point of math, I think, is to help you be aggressive. And where I see most businesses using math is to help them justify and be defensive because they're trying to prove to someone else in their organization that they are deserving. But you don't prove stuff with math. You prove stuff by fixing trust. Like, we forget that businesses are just a group of human beings. We are people. People have natural biases based on experience on who they trust and who they don't trust. Now, their bias shouldn't stop you from trying to become a part of the trusted group, but that's where you invest the effort. And so, where math, where analytics comes in, is it's a monitoring mechanism. When you understand your key performance indicators, your unit economics, that math, that data driven perspective helps you align with that. And when you have a new opportunity and you have some sense of what level of success and failure you really you can tolerate, math will help you start to draw a picture, but math isn't going to finish the picture. I'm sorry. If math could solve the whole thing, you wouldn't need a solution. You just do what math told you to do. Math is good, but it's not enough. Not by itself. The people still matter. They're always going to matter. So back to the AI thing, an expert in AI told me one time the human brain is the most specialized computer ever invented. There's some things that AI will never be able to take because the human brain is perfectly designed for it. But the human brain is also very specialized. So there's certain things the human brain will never do better than a well-instructed computer. And so the goal of technology is to take the activity, take the action, and put it in the hands of the best entity. And I'm using entity purposefully because sometimes it needs to be a human being when judgment and morale and values need to be a part of it. And sometimes it needs to be math because the only one answer, no matter what your human viewpoint is, there's one answer.
Mhm.
You want math doing that. You don't want
Mhm.
someone talking themselves out of doing the right thing because they're overthinking or they're uncomfortable or they're fearful.
Mm. So then let me just ask you this. Now, this is playing devil's advocate.
Yep.
When you talk about this math part of the whole thing, um, let's say and I don't think I wouldn't call it like not having trust, but I'm relying on math to just totally calculate everything to the penny, to the all the way down to the bottom line. Would I be a fool to do that?
Math can calculate history. Math can't calculate the future because at some point in your calculation, you're making the assumption that what is today is going to be the same tomorrow. That's
Mhm.
almost never true. It might be, it might be 2% different, in which case, like, your model's good enough. But it might be 30% different, in which case your model's trash. And if you trust it too much and don't pick up the fact that, okay, the situation tomorrow is 30% different than today, you're going to make bad decisions. And most importantly, you're not going to know you made a bad decision because you're relying too much of the math. People make mistakes when they're really, really sure and really, really wrong. Sometimes math makes people feel like they're really, really sure when it shouldn't.
Ooh.
That's all I'm saying.
That one I gotta put an asterisk by that because that makes I mean, that makes a lot of sense. I'm not the world's genius when it comes to math, and I don't really like to use it that much, but I do know, and I think they're gonna know who I'm talking about. There are some people that I used to work with especially. I mean,
Mhm.
it's like everything had to be based on an algebraic equation, right? And I'm like, "Really?" And so I couldn't get the logic in that, but that's truly how they felt. So in trying to understand that, it just didn't work with me. And so I had to
It,
leave that place.
and to be clear, it didn't work with them either, because there are ways that the human brain is powerful where intuition should absolutely trump math, and experience should absolutely trump math in certain spots. But if you don't have experience, you don't have expertise, you don't have technical, what's the safest thing? Oh, someone gave me some math and they said do this. And so I did that. And if it didn't work, you can go, oh, the math said it shouldn't work. It ain't my fault. So we still losing. I don't care whose fault it is. Get the right answer. Let's fix
Right.
it. Let's get back to winning. Like, what are we doing?
Um, how do you approach talent acquisition and retention in today's competitive market? And what strategies have you found to be most effective?
All right. So I'm going to say something unpopular here. And I'm looking at you, controlling CEOs, directors, managers, business owners. When someone's ready to go do their next thing and they have conviction, you aren't going to stop them. And just because you have a superstar, an all world player on your team, you can't hold them forever. So I am a big believer in the alliance. So in other words, when someone comes into your team, your organization, and when someone does that on my team, first thing I do is I sit down. I was like, okay, here's why I think you belong here. Here's the vision. Here's the mission. Here's my expectation of you. Here's your expectation of me. Oh, by the way, we're going to do this for 18 months, 24 months. And once that time passes, like 3 to 6 months before, we're going to sit down and we're going to talk about, do we do this next mission together? And if you give me all you have on this tour duty, when it's time for the next tour duty, if it's time for you to do something different or me to do something different, we've done our job together. I want to help you do the next thing if it's not with me. And if
Mm,
we do this right, you should want to help me do the next thing if you're not going to be a part of it. Because,
mhm,
like, the fear is it's going to happen out of the blue, and I'm not going to have time to put a plan in place so that I'm okay. But you know what? That should never happen if you have that tour duty conversation. Because as part of that, you say, if anything changes that changes the pact that we made, the person who's experiences the change, it's their responsibility to come to the table and say, hey, something changed. And if someone does that, you can't get on them because life happens. I'm sorry. If I had a crystal ball and I knew what tomorrow was going to bring, I wouldn't be on this podcast. I'd be predicting that I'd wait till I knew the Powerball was going to be $2 billion. I put my money in the right place and I'd disappear. And I'd take everyone I loved and we lived a good life.
mm.
There's no crystal ball.
Right.
There's not one. So we have to account and embrace the lack of predictability and the human part of this exercise. And so how you do that is you just come to an agreement on a vision, roles and responsibilities, expectation, and a timeline. And you set the conditions under which, okay, it is reasonable for our commitment to be negotiated.
Mm.
Then you make it easy when someone's going through something. Instead of feeling like they have to hide it behind your back because they don't feel safe, they bring it right to you so that you're prepared, and vice versa. Like, the only people who get surprised in these environments are people who have bad relationships and who haven't built up the trust and who haven't built up the safety so that people can come and talk and be honest about normal real life. Like, we're not robots, we're not characters in a movie. This is real. Stuff happens. Amazing things happen. Crazy things happen. Terrible things happen. We don't know.
I think you just answered my question, I think, because I was about to ask, would that go back to that fear thing that you were talking about earlier?
Yeah, like, of course, like, no one wants something bad to happen. And I say all the time, like, you can't outplan bad luck. If the terrible, unpredictable, predictable thing's gonna happen, you're not gonna stop it. If the asteroid comes and takes out the bridge you're on, it's horrible. It's unfortunate. And unless you had a crystal ball, there's nothing you can do about it.
Mm,
Why not go after dreams and visions that might be far out, might be nearly impossible, but you actually can do something to achieve?
mm,
Because downside is limited. There's only so far down you can go. You can go up forever.
mm.
Find a way to go up. And if you don't believe in yourself, someone in your circle believes in you more than you believe in yourself. Go find that person. Go lay your head on their shoulder. Go cry your eyes out. Go scream your face off and let them help you. We
Oh,
all
wow.
deserve to be okay.
That sounds like a tantrum.
Look, when you go to therapy, a lot of times you spend time talking about your inner child. Your
True.
inner child is going to have tantrums if they aren't satisfied. And those tantrums are going to come out your grown body. And
Right.
you're going to be acting like a 3-year-old. And it's natural. But like, someone in your circle wants to help you do that in private instead of in public. And if you keep denying that inner child, you're going to have that tantrum in public at the worst possible moment.
Oh,
And you're going to
wow.
cost yourself everything. Why'd
Yes.
you do that? What are we doing?
Mm. So, can you share examples of successful business transformation or turnarounds you've been involved in and the key strategies that led to their success?
Yeah, so it's funny you mentioned that. So I was actually just talking with a good friend of mine. He runs a youth basketball academy out here in the Bay Area, and when the pandemic hit, those in-person businesses, all of a sudden it's like, okay, you can't see people. Like, what do you do? What do you do if your entire business model is centered around being able to interact with people day in and day out, and all of a sudden you can't? I was like, okay, well, better get good at virtual. And so the first thing I did was I was like, okay, we need to start a virtual academy as quickly as possible. And we need to make sure that everyone who's decided to spend money with us has a way to get what they're paying for and to have a good experience. And so, that was an example of we had to all do something we never did before. We had to figure out how to teach basketball without and dribbling without being in a gym. And it was
Mm,
wild and it was crazy, but we figured it out. And we met people from all over the country that rocked with the brand, just like the people in Northern California. And not only that, it challenged us to learn different ways about teaching. That once, we got back to a place where it was safer to do in person activities for youth and for teenagers, it made the company better. The company learned how to market online more effectively. The company learned better techniques to be able to teach. The company learned how to manage its money more effectively. The company learned the value of having a nest egg. Luckily, this client had a nest egg, and that's what they needed to be able to survive. And that's why I talk about systems so much for businesses. The goal is to have cash flow. You don't know when the hook is coming, when you're going to lose control over what you're doing. You have to have enough runway to survive the hook. And so one of the things that we had done is make sure to build that runway. And he was always on me like, why are you telling me to charge customers more? I'm like, well, you can do one of two things. You can charge them a number you feel comfortable with, and you can have no cushion. And the first time something bad happens, you're out of business and they don't get what they want. Or you could run a good business, have a cushion, and when you need it, you have it. And we talked about it. Sometimes all you need is runway to get to the next spot. And what we did is we built another runway to get him to the next spot. And his business has doubled since the pandemic started. And his business is thriving. But not only that, the children and the families and the communities are thriving as well. Because when the opportunity rose to the occasion, they were willing to change. They were willing to adapt. They were willing to try new technology, new systems, new revenue models, bring in new people with different backgrounds. And some of it worked fabulously, and some of it flamed out. But we learned how to adjust quickly. But most importantly, we talked every day, and there was a communication cadence so that we didn't miss anything important because the situation was important. Everyone was in a dire, well, I wouldn't say everyone. Most people were it, like no one had lived through a pandemic before unless you're 100 years old. Like I don't know anybody who was around in 1919, and most people making most of these decisions didn't either.
Right.
New, novel, what we talk about. New novel situation, that's when you find out how good of a team you have. And
Mm,
thankfully, we have been working together to build a great team. So when this moment hit, my client had a great team and we knew what to do. So
mhm,
we just ran the plays, and more importantly, we ran the system making process so that when we needed to create a new play, we had the capability to do so. And I was able to, for example, when PPP came out, he was that this client was one of the first ones because I was like, all right, in order to have runway, we need more cash. I don't care how much we have in the bank. We can always use more. Let's learn the rules and let's do things in accordance with the rules because every government wants businesses to be successful. Businesses hire people, businesses provide income, they take care of families, they change the world when done correctly. Like the
mm,
government wants businesses to win. Just, do what they reward. And in this
mm,
case, they gave money freely to keep teams employed. And so, okay, take those resources, but more importantly, have a vision, have a message, have a mission, have a strategy, have your key performance indicators, have your people, have your training aligned so that when opportunity knocks, you can do your best with it. And if you do your best, got to be okay with the result, no matter what it is.
mm,
And so that's the thing. It's transformation comes down to you have to put the building blocks in place. So someone has to come in and assess, okay, what's good enough, what's not. And the things that aren't good enough, you make them good enough. But more importantly, the things that are good, you make them great. Because the things that are great are the things that are going to create the runway to survive when the crazy thing happens that no one could have been prepared for.
mhm. In your opinion,
Mhm.
what role does leadership development play in driving organizational growth, and how can companies cultivate strong leadership pipelines?
Well, listen, bottom line is leadership is marketing. A leader's job is to inspire people to try and behave in a way that's to the benefit of the team, the organization, the business. Full stop. That's it. That's what a leader does, which is different than the best person doing a particular task so they get promoted to do more of that task. Sometimes the person best at doing it isn't the best leader, isn't the best manager. And so if you want to develop leaders, it's not just about metrics. You have to pay attention to which people know why they are successful and which people can take other people and not only give them techniques and abilities to make themselves more successful, but can inspire them behaviorally through their choices to give more, to try more. Like everything isn't about getting better through science. Sometimes it's effort. There's lots of people floating around in companies right now trying giving 20, 30, 40% of their effort. And I'm not judging, but a great leader will find those people and figure out if they can get 60 instead of 40. Can they get 70 instead of 50? That matters. That's the difference a lot of the time. Because a lot of companies are competing in spaces where most of the companies, most of the teams are about equal. So the group that's going to try harder, the group that's more inspired, the group that wants it more is the one that's going to get there. And so that's leadership's job. Leadership is marketing. Leadership inspires and changes behavior and changes attitudes so that people invest of their own accord, of their own free will to drive to the goal.
Wow. So let me ask you this: when it comes to this situation with the businesses,
Mhm.
um, should they pretty much kind of like have this like at a ready position where like it's like a part of like a strategy, some kind of format of, no, let's say what you call it, their system that they have in place, that is their system that dictates that next move.
Um, I wouldn't say the next move. What I would say is this: if there is a role that's important
Mhm.
to your company being successful, your systems should be designed so that you have two people on the inside and potentially one person outside the company that's ready to step in at any time. But in order to do that, you have to have a way of not only understanding what someone's capabilities are and what someone's behavior tendencies are, but also what are their wants, needs, and desires? What's their life situation? And no one should be threatened by having a succession plan in place, having a structure to decide who's going to step into a seat next. Again, after you give things a chance to morph. But if a position is important enough, that position's responsibilities are not morphing. And so if you don't know who's next and you don't know how to design a tournament, if there's only one spot to decide from three decently qualified people who should go in that seat next, you're not doing it right. Why why would you fly a plane without a backup pilot somewhere on the plane? Like, people get sick, people get hurt, crazy things happen. If no one's flying the plane, it's not going to be good. If there's an important seat in your organization, why would you leave any chance for it to be empty ever? That's crazy. And it also makes you fearful because, okay, if you know you're dependent on one person, then you get like manipulative, you get crazy, you get controlling because you're so scared you can only see you. Imagine how much better it would feel if everybody in the room was like, okay, I know I'm important, but if I need to go do something else, or the company decides to go in a different direction, we can do it and we aren't risking everything.
Mhm.
It's okay to talk about things going well and having to move someone up, down, or sideways. And it's okay to talk about things going poorly and having to move someone up, down, or sideways in their role. Those are healthy conversations that should happen regularly, whether you have a small business of 5 people or a business of 5 million people. It's healthy. Things are going to change. The question is, are you prepared? Have you thought about it? And when you haven't thought about it, do you have the right people who are going to rise to the occasion, think about it, feel about it, and get you to the next best place?
Mhm. How can businesses leverage emerging technology such as AI and machine learning to enhance their decision-making processes and gain a competitive edge?
Yeah. So we've talked a lot today about how to do that. I'm going to talk instead about when not to do that. If you don't have the answers for what's important to your business, to the point where someone like me could come in and ask any critical question we can think of based on our experience, and you can't pull out the answer within 5 minutes, you're not ready to leverage technology. I've seen so many business leaders, business owners hear about the new technology, like, I gotta have that. That's what's hot. And not think about, am I ready for it? Is this going to work for me in my situation, in my context, in my business? No, no, no.
Mm,
Technology can make known answers better. Technology isn't going to fix the unknown. You
mm,
have to know what you're doing and then find technology that helps you make it easy, faster, better. So, yes, someone should be looking at what's coming, but only from the eyes of, hey, I know this part of my business, I know this activity, I know this system is important. Yes, I'm always looking out for ways to do it better. But it shouldn't be technology, then the system. It should be the system, the process, and then technology to enhance it. People just doing stuff out of order. And those are
Mm,
expensive mistakes because not only are you buying a technology, but then you got to train everybody how to use it. And then you become dependent on it. If you pick wrong, that's going to go bad. So just
mm,
like there's going to be a point where you know you need something better. And hopefully the person or people who are responsible in your organization for understanding trends, and there should be one who's like forward looking and who's out there. And by the way, that person should just like doing that anyway. Like I
mm,
just enjoy being on my phone looking out for like different trends in that AI because that kind of stuff is interesting to me. There's someone on your squad, on your team, where that's just interesting to them. Give them the responsibility of knowing what's available, but don't focus on implementation unless it solves a unique problem that's important.
mm,
Tech for tech's sake is it's distracting at a minimum. It could be worse than distracting, but it's distracting at a minimum. And it's a competitive world we out there. We don't got time for that.
mm. That's the thing that I was wondering about that because I kind of like see that two ways.
Mhm.
And the thing is, I see that with the technology, let's say like that particular individual that you're talking about that does that part, and that's what they're doing because they love it, right? So unless there's something well, let me just ask this question: or am I like telling them this is what we're looking for? So if this comes up for this situation, then we getting ready to run with it. Is that kind of like what you're saying?
I wouldn't say to tell anyone anything. I would say everyone in your company should be informed about what matters. And if you've shared information and communicated correctly, and every employee, every team member knows what matters, the person who is obsessed and excited about technology, they're going to see something. They're also going to know what matters. You're going to have to tell them what to look for. They're going to bring it to you, and it's going to be relevant and it's going to be timely because you've given them the information so that they understand what relevant and timely is. I don't understand when organizations hide all of the important things about how to win and why our organization is going to win this way. That's crazy because that doesn't empower, it handcuffs people. If you're going to spend all the time to hire someone and train them, why are we handcuffing? That's crazy.
Mm,
If you
very
don't
much
trust a
so.
person, go get someone you trust. But if you trust them, empower them with the information so that they can use their skills, knowledge, talents, and abilities to actually help. Because if someone's spending time at your company, yes, they want the paycheck. Yes, they want what the paycheck delivers. But you know what else they want? They want to know that there's not wasting their time. They want to know that they're doing something that's meaningful.
Okay, we got this last question for you. What are some best practices for developing and implementing effective performance management systems to drive employee engagement and development?
Okay. So the main reason historically for performance management is that you have to have something to link to compensation. And so when I hear performance management, what I think about is what's the compensation philosophy for the company? And do we want to give extra super rewards to people who are producing at an outsized level? Or do we want to give everyone similar rewards? And so when I hear performance management, that's the connection I make. And so that system needs to be fair, it needs to be clear, and everyone needs to know what the scoreboard looks like. They need to understand if I do this, I get this. If I don't do this, I don't get this. So when I hear performance management, that's what needs to be addressed, which is different than how do I help my employees be the best version of themselves? Well, that's a team effort. First of all, the employee themselves has to know what craft they want to get better at, and they have to have the room and time to invest, and they also have to have the resources to invest, whether it's mentorship, classes, new job experiences, and that sort of thing. And that's where, again, in this alliance, it's not just about what is the work, it's also about how am I going to grow? How's the company going to grow? How are we going to grow together? And so professional development should be a partnership that's beneficial to both employee and company, which is why you spend the time being thought out. And the more aligned your mission, your vision, your strategies, your system, your technology, and your protocols are, that gives you better opportunity to do those things. And lastly, if you or anyone is relying on your 6 month or your 1 year annual review as the only time to give feedback, the only time to evaluate performance, you're doing it wrong. There should not be a person in your building that on a weekly basis doesn't understand where they stand. Now, it doesn't have to be some super architected, super technological ranking board type process. But again, if you don't know what's important and you aren't having those conversations on a regular basis with the people doing the work,
Mhm.
you're playing without a pilot. It's part
Yeah.
of the job. Pilots have protocols and checklists that have been designed and architected and adapted over decades and years to be successful. So that's what matters.
And so, do you have any parting words for our listeners out here this evening, as we get ready to wrap this show up?
Well, so I would say cherish the day. Family first always. I see my daughter's behind me trying to get on the camera because she loves it. Uh, Listen, if there's anything I can do to help, I'm more than happy to. Charles has my information, but you can follow me on Instagram at Polymath Coach. My website is there. We can talk anytime. My name's Ed Bailey. You can find me on LinkedIn. My phone number is on my profile. It's there for a reason. If you want to text me and talk, feel free. But otherwise, like, we all can make it. We can all be successful. All of our dreams can come true. We just have to work together, and we have to have a process and system in place. And we have to be purposeful. And if you do those things, you give yourself the best chance. And it was a pleasure to be here and a pleasure to have this platform to talk about these things.
Well, I thank you once again for being here because you definitely have been very, very enlightening. And this is again, is a learned experience that not only myself can learn from, but I'm sure that everyone that's out there listening, there's something that they can learn from this. I know for some it may be a little bit more than others, but still in all, it's the learned experience. And I want to thank you for being such a wonderful instructor, and actually passing out this knowledge because this was really knowledgeable and I appreciate you so much. I want
Yeah,
to say
listen, I'm learning too. A lot of stuff I talked about today, I didn't know 2 years ago, 3 years ago, 5 years ago. But I'm a student of life, and I didn't necessarily have anyone to teach me. So if there's like one thing that I said that helps every one of your guests, like, look, it's an hour well spent, and
Mhm.
I'll do it again anytime. So you need me, you got my number. You know how to find me.
Yes, sir. I thank you so very kindly. I thank
Yep.
everyone out there that was here with us tonight. Join us again tomorrow for another episode of America in Black and White. Thank you, Mr. Bailey, and thank you everybody out there. And we will see you all tomorrow.